Hello, Manic Mercurian with your Synastry chart reading, and this will be, of course, for two people. We're going to look at two different charts and then kind of see what the interaction is, what's the relationship. I do know this is a romantic relationship, but that's pretty much all I know at this point. So we're going to kind of see how these things play out in the astrology. The chart you're seeing on the left is for 7:30 a.m. October 1st, 1983, in Saigon, Vietnam, and the chart on the right is for 8:05 a.m. April 5th, 1989 in Lubbock, Texas. Okay, so right off the bat, well, first I want to say actually, the person on the left, as you know, I already did a reading for you, just posted that semi recently here. So I think that's pretty cool. I already covered a lot of the themes going on, with the chart that you can see on the left, talked a lot about that. So that's pretty cool. I've covered a lot of ground there already. So now we just need to see this other chart and kind of how the two play out together. So looking at the second chart, which you're seeing on the right, I found really interesting for a lot of reasons. So the first is, this person. Well, let's go through the basics here. So the person on the left is Libra Sun, Cancer Moon, Scorpio Rising. Person on the right here, why I found this chart interesting is it's Aries Sun, Aries Moon, Aries Rising. It's a lot of Aries. The luminaries are in Aries, the ascendants in Aries. Not only that, but Mercury and Venus are also in Aries. So this is almost as like pure of an Aries as you can get. What's okay? There's a lot to unpack here. Um, okay, because this is a synastry reading, a lot of compatibility has to do with Venus, Mars, and the descendant. Those are kind of my big three, if you will, that I go to look for, romance and relationship type stuff. So the person on the left has Venus in Leo, Mars in Virgo, descendant in Taurus. Person on the right has Venus in Aries, Mars in Gemini, with descendant in Libra. So the above all else, let's just start at the most important thing. To me, the descendant is a totally underrated part of astrology because it very, very clearly signifies what you need in a relationship, how you interact with other people, how you work with people. It has to do with a lot of compatibility, even more so than any other placement, I would say. And we see a very literal connection here. So, person on the right has Aries ascendant. That means directly opposite that is the descendant. So, that puts the descendant in Libra. This means I'll continue to refer to you as person on the left and person on the right. I hope that's okay, at least for now, since we're comparing these charts here. Um, but and I want this to remain anonymous. But the person on the right has Libra descendant, so that would mean that person on the right, being very Aries and Aries ascendant, is a leader. This person kind of makes the first move. They initiate. They are very bold. They're kind of always getting into things. Like Aries is the ram. It leads. It leads with the head. It's kind of diving into things. It's more impulsive or spontaneous, and so especially with Aries ascendant, the way that this person expresses themselves with other people is that they kind of prefer to be the leader in a lot of ways. Like they might make the first move, for instance. Counter to that, the person that they would attract would be Libra descendant. So they're looking for a person like Libra. Doesn't always have to be literally Libra, but in this case, it literally is. This person is literally with a Libra sun. So that's it shows that this would click very well so far. So person on the right needs someone who is a little bit more easygoing or accommodating. Having that somewhat headstrong personality or having a individualistic, very passionate, very on fire, outgoing, energetic personality. They would actually prefer someone kind of more go with the flow, someone maybe a little bit more grounded, someone kind of down to earth. Um, someone that would be receptive to their initiation, if that makes sense. So with this combination, this definitely checks out. This works very well. Person on the left literally is Libra. They would have those classic Libra traits of being, maybe easygoing, happy to kind of go with the flow of, the leadership that would come from the person on the right. So, so far this looks really beautiful, I would say. And we can let's see. Let's expand to these other Aries placements as well. So, let's talk about Venus. Let's kind of just jump around here. So, something notable about the person on the left is that they have Venus in Leo. Excuse me. There's not a lot of fire placements on the left chart, but there is Venus in Leo. So this means that this person will be kind of maybe uncharacteristically fiery in relationships. The more they kind of delve into romance and relationships, which are all kind of sort of Venus-y things, the more they will emulate their Leo Venus. So they're going to be more, cheerful, outgoing. They'll kind of take the lead and be energetic. And so this works very well with the person on the right because the person on the right has Venus in Aries, so that's another fire Venus sign. So both of you have Venus in fire. You'll both be kind of outgoing, energetic. You'll both maybe kind of take the lead more whenever you're embracing, the more you get into your relationship and your romance, the more you would both be fiery, outgoing, expressive. And so you'd almost be, I almost want to say like rivals in a way, like friendly rivals, kind of like feeding off each other's energy and both becoming more individualistic and outgoing and expressive the more you kind of enjoy each other's company, if that makes sense. It would expand both of your kind of fiery traits, if that makes sense. Um, let's see here. And something interesting, I think, is that person on the left, you have Libra Sun with Cancer Moon. These are both cardinal signs, and person on the right, like we talked about, has an abundance of Aries placements, which is also a cardinal sign. So we're mixing a lot of cardinal energies. What that means is, how do I approach this? So cardinal signs correlate to the beginning of seasons. So for instance, person on the left was born during the first trimester of fall. Their moon is in the sign which corresponds to the first trimester of summer, so that would be Cancer. Person on the right has, a stellium or a group of planets in Aries, which corresponds to the first trimester of spring, the beginning of spring. So both of you have a lot of energies that are related to the beginning of seasons, the beginnings in general. These are different seasons, though. Person on the left is beginning of fall and summer. Those seasons mostly explore family, relationships, interpersonal dynamics. So person on the left is more, receptive, like we talked about, easygoing, very empathetic. Person on the right is more focused on the beginning of spring, which is a lot more about the individual, the identity, the ego. So person on the right is more exploring themes involving like self-expression and identity, desire, things like that. So the themes that you're experiencing are very different, and so you may, how do I put this? Like you may have very differing approaches, but because you do share the fact that you're a lot of your identity has to do with the cardinal signs at the beginning of seasons. So because of that, you would understand one another. You may not always agree. You may have very differing approaches, very different styles. You may be exploring different themes, but you at least understand each other. You respect each other. You clearly see where each other is coming from, even if you're in very different places, if that makes sense. Um, so that was, kind of a complex subject, but I thought that was very interesting. There's this, a lot of cardinal signs there. So to summarize that, I like saying, you can see where each other is, even though you're in different places, if that makes sense. So that can add some, how do I put this, like edginess to the relationship. It can almost add like contrast, I guess you could say, which honestly kind of spices things up. Some more like pop astrology would say that you're not compatible, but I would not say that at all because, like I said, there's that shared understanding. Yes, your approaches are different, but you can have that shared, that mutual respect and understanding. And if anything, we actually need some kind of harsh aspects between us um, in our interpersonal relationships in order to have that kind of contrast, that spice. If you had, like pop astrology would say like compatible, when really they mean similar. If you had all similar energies and you had a bunch of like trines and like super easy aspects, you'd just be friends. It would be very comfortable, but kind of boring. There'd be no spice. There'd be no like opposite attracts. You get what I'm saying? Um, so anyway, so I know that kind of was took a little bit of nuance, but I think it's actually very interesting. Libra and Cancer on the left, Aries on the right, very different approaches, but you understand each other. So I think this is a dynamic that works pretty well. Because I think with, what I've learned from doing these types of synastry readings is that we all need some level of, we need to have enough in common to understand one another, but enough different to benefit one another and to keep things interesting in order to have a kind of optimal relationship. And so, anyway, this is kind of a long winded way of saying I do think that is there, judging by the positions of your sun and moon, both of your suns and moons. Okay, that was a long explanation, but I think that was important. Um, let's see what else. We talked about a lot already. I haven't talked about the descendant on the left. Now, this is especially interesting because I know, for the chart on the left, you said that you're pretty sure the birth time is correct. It's 7:30 a.m., but you're not 100% sure. I don't know how sure exactly you are. Um, but because your ascendant is very close to the Libra Scorpio cusp, if your time was just a little bit off, it could dramatically change your identity and, related to astrology, of course. And therefore, it would change the descendant as well. So it would change what you need in a relationship. So I'll do both explanations. I'll cover this chart that with the time you gave me for Scorpio rising and Taurus descendant, and then I'll also cover Libra rising Aries descendant because you're very close to those placements. Okay, so the way the chart is now, you'd have Taurus descendant. So to me, that would show you'd really be attracted to somebody earthy. Um, especially, since you're interested in women. That fire is important because you've got that Leo Venus. We already talked about that a lot, I think. So that works well because this person on the right is very fiery, has a lot of fire actually. So that works pretty well. But the Taurus descendant shows that you would need someone stable, practical, grounded, and let's take a look around. Because I'm still looking at these charts here. Okay, I found a placement that actually kind of balances this. Maybe that explains it. Because to be totally honest, at first it wasn't making sense to me. I saw Taurus descendant. I felt like we were pretty confident that this time was correct for you. But I saw Taurus descendant and I couldn't see a placement to, there's not a lot of Earth on the right. However, I did see on the right, you do have South Node in Virgo. I didn't initially see it because it's never labeled on these charts. I really wish it was because it actually dictates a lot of the personality. It has to do with where we come from, our past lives, our history, and it's a lot of our strengths in this life. It actually has, it's a really major placement that a lot of people don't pay attention to. But anyway, person on the right, you have South Node in Virgo. So this actually is really, really beautiful and adds. I was initially confused, but this makes a lot more sense now. So person on the right, you've got those Aries placements that we talked about. So you're really good at initiating. It's in a kind of covert way, though. You have all this stellium in Aries would typically say you're super outgoing, you're super ambitious, you're always spontaneous, and that would be true for you. However, it's a little bit more nuanced because this stellium is in the 12th house. Person on the left, I know you've heard me talk a lot about the 12th house already because you have Sun in the 12th house. So this is something that you both have in common. I know I'm getting a little sidetracked here, but I'll come back around to what I was talking about earlier in just a second. Um, okay, but yeah, you both have Sun in the 12th house, and person on the right, you have a whole bunch of stuff in Aries 12th house: Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus. Um, so both of you would relate to a lot of 12th house themes. I know you may not be familiar with the houses. So again, 12th house has to do with the unseen, like the what's behind the curtain, behind the veil, spirituality, metaphysics. People with 12th house placements are very challenged, especially at a young age. They feel suppressed. They feel stuck in their heads. They feel like they're not allowed to be themselves. They can't express themselves, and it's because whatever's in the 12th house is kind of in the subconscious. So let's say person on the right, you've got a whole bunch of stuff there: Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus. This would be very challenging. This means The sun rules your ego. Your ego would be kind of hidden away, suppressed at a young age. Moon would be your emotional identity, your feelings. That would be hidden away or suppressed, through your upbringing. Mercury would be your intellect, your communication. That would be suppressed and hidden away. And then same with Venus would be, which was more like, romance and attraction. All of this, this is a pretty big bulk of your personality. All of that um, is very kind of, you are confident in all these areas. You've got those Aries traits, but at the same time, you would be kind of challenged at a young age. Like you felt like you had to hide all this about you. You probably always had that fiery spark that Aries has. That charisma and that um, daringness or that courage. You probably always had that, but you felt like you couldn't express it or you had to pretend like it wasn't there. And that leads me to something I was talking about, which is, um, all this was in the subconscious for you at a young age, and that's why it took time to develop. Just like person on the left has their sun in 12th house, the ego, took longer to develop. The self-expression for both of you would take longer to develop. But once you do develop it, it's very powerful because these subconscious placements, once they become more conscious, basically create a window to your own subconscious. So you are now aware. Once you've evolved, once you've gotten over usually some trauma, once you've gone through the work to become more aware in those areas, usually by the time you're 18 or maybe late 20s at the very latest, um, then now you're actually very aware. So you've gone from a point of maybe having part of you hidden from yourself to by the time you mature and become an adult, you're actually very aware. You know your subconscious very well. And because of that, you can read other people very well. Once you understand I think the person on the left, you actually said this. Once you understand yourself, you can understand other people very well. That's very true. And that's exactly what happens with a lot of these 12th house placements. Um, okay. So all that is just to say, I guess I was just kind of providing an overview and then also touching on another thing. I got a little bit distracted there, but that's something that you would have in common. So that's another kind of pillar of something that you could both relate to with each other. Especially because 12th house placements are often misunderstood. You feel like an outcast, or, you have this kind of unique understanding of yourself and other people and of metaphysics and spirituality. You kind of when you have strong 12th house placements, it's almost like you have one foot in this reality and one foot in another reality. So sharing that influence in your charts is very powerful. You feel like you can relate to each other with all that. You can connect to each other. You have a similar approach. Both of you. It's interesting. Person on the right, your chart is almost a little bit contradictory because all the Aries placements would suggest that you begin things very fast. You're very direct and overt, but all the 12th house placements suggest that you would take time. You take time to approach people or to take time with like kind of anything really. Um, but then you'd always be changing and growing through life, if that makes sense. So I don't know exactly, to be totally honest, I don't know exactly how both of those themes combine for you, but I'm sure that they do in some way. So anyway, you have a lot of shared traits, and I think by now I've covered, I already did the birth chart reading for the person on the left, and then now I've covered a lot of at least the general personality for the person on the right. I got a little sidetracked there, but what I was saying is, person on the right is more of that kind of person, fiery, has that 12th house influence, which I explained. But to be compatible with the person on the left, person on the right would have to have an earthy influence. They would need to be practical. And I now see that you do have that. You are practical. The reason why is the South Node in Virgo. You don't have a lot of earthy placements. You have some in Capricorn, which I'm going to get to here in a moment. But the South Node in Virgo alone, I've known many people actually who have that placement. And even if you have no other Earth placements at all, even if you have the most like reckless and irresponsible placements, hypothetically, if you've got the South Node in Virgo, that alone is enough to make you detail oriented. Like you clean up after yourself. And I mean that physically as well as emotionally. You not only take care of your own emotional baggage, but you also literally, you can, person on the right, you can go to work, pay the bills, clean the house, take out the trash, whatever. You're practical, you're detail oriented. You can handle all that like mundane stuff, the stuff that other people might find boring or tedious. That to you is no problem. Handling money, whatever. So that alone actually makes a lot of sense. Person on the left, you would need that practicality in someone. You need someone who can handle their own stuff, so to speak. Taurus descendant means you want someone kind of like Taurus, so someone maybe a little bit conventional, practical, um, who can hold their own, take care of themselves. Someone grounded, grounding. Um, Taurus is kind of it's very sensual, so it's like it doesn't get carried away with things that it can't sense with its own senses. So, person on the right, you don't have any Taurus placements, but because you have that South Node in Virgo, Virgo is very similar to Taurus. To me, that checks out. This actually looks pretty cool the more I'm looking at it. Um, okay, so yeah, to summarize one thing real quick, the descendants are both satisfied. I started this honestly not really understanding how the left person's descendant would work, how the person on the right would fulfill that, but it does. So yeah, person on the right, you have Libra descendant, you need a Libra type person. You're literally with a Libra sun, so that works. That checks out. Person on the left, you have Taurus descendant, you need someone practical, like I was talking about. Person on the right has Virgo South node, so they're practical. So yeah, that checks out. So having the descendants satisfied, I guess I could say, again, I'm going to really stress the importance. That alone can make or break a whole thing. I could talk all day about all these other placements, but the descendant is the most important. And to me, both of those work. You would both be what each other needs. You'd both understand each other as partners. You could work as a team. You can complement each other. So yeah, this is really beautiful. Let's see. And then, like I talked about with these other placements too, you have enough in common for that mutual respect and that communication between you, but enough different that you can benefit each other and to add some contrast, add some spice. So that looks really great. I don't want this to all be positive. I will look for some kind of challenge, I promise you. So don't think that I'll just, that this will all just be fluff here. Okay, one thing I did want to address though that I said I would talk about. Person on the right does have some more Earth, but it's more pertaining to like the career, public image. You've got at the top of the chart, you have Capricorn midheaven. You've got Saturn right there, conjunct the midheaven pretty much. And then Neptune in that conjunction as well. Neptune conjunct Saturn in Capricorn. So to me, person on the right with Aries rising and then all these Aries placements and then Virgo South Node and Capricorn midheaven. Um, Dang, like you really seem like someone who can get a lot of work done. You seem like a manager, a leader, like an entrepreneur. You have the daring and the courage to, be that like front person in a lot of ways. Part of you likes to hang out in the background though, which is interesting because of all your 12th house placements. Like you like to be kind of unseen at times. It's a mixture. It's a mixture. You like to be in the background, but you can also be that front person, that number one person. You have this like charisma about you. But not only that, you don't just have the fire and the charisma, but you also have this really grounded practicality. At work, you're seen as someone mature and responsible, someone who can be looked up to, someone who can, handle a lot of authority or responsibility. So, yeah, I don't know if this is totally relevant, but I just want to say you have a lot of like entrepreneurial abilities, I would say. Like you could really handle like a large company or something. So that's pretty interesting. Um, Let's see. A pattern that I often notice comparing charts like this is typically one person will be kind of like the dreamer. They'll be the more wild one, the more emotional one, more spontaneous, more impulsive, more creative. And then the other person will be more grounded and practical. Um, with you guys, I don't think it almost always works that way, but I think with these charts, I don't necessarily see that. Um, I see you as both being pretty practical, and you both also have like a creative side as well. Um, if anything, if I had to kind of categorize you guys that way and make it fit a little bit, I would say the person on the right might be more practical actually. Um, Even though you have all these Aries 12th house placements, you can have a lot of like really vivid and crazy ideas and imagination and a lot of inspiration. I think you're very passionate, but when it really comes down to it, that South Node in Virgo, I said South Node has to do with past lives. So person on the right, like in a past life, you may have been a doctor or someone that was always paying attention to time because they had to be accountable. They were needed. They're they were always helping somebody else. They were, providing a service. So coming into this life, it's like you're hyper aware of time, and that helps you to be responsible, I guess. So really, you both be practical. Left person has Mercury in Virgo. Mercury's very strong. Mercury rules over the chart ruler, and it's in Virgo. So you both have that touch of Virgo where you both kind of be grounded. But then you've also got these fire placements. Person on the left has Cancer Moon, so you both have that emotional like creativity as well. So really, it's kind of you're both pretty balanced in that way, which is kind of rare for me. So that's interesting. Um, okay, what have I not gotten to? I haven't gotten to your Mars placements. So they do well. They square by sign, not by aspect. Person on the left, you have Mars in Virgo. Person on the right, you have Mars in Gemini. I thought it was very interesting that both of your Mars are ruled by Mercury. So, Mars, of course, has to do with like masculine desire, the masculine side of our personality. So in this context with the relationships, it has a lot to do with like sex, what's your approach to sex, what's your sex drive like, stuff like that. And for both of you, it's ruled by Mercury. So both of your sexualities actually is very like mentally oriented. So I think there's a word for it that people say like they're only attracted to intelligent people, or you like for both of you, you very much need that intellectual connection in order to be sexually attracted to someone. For both of you, it's very different because for one, it's Mars and Virgo on the left, and the right is Mars and Gemini, but both have that shared mercurial connection. Um, so that's really interesting to me. You almost, like if you just saw somebody on the street, you wouldn't necessarily be super attracted to them. It's really, really important for you to know where they're at mentally, to connect with them, to have a, intriguing conversation or something, to start having that sexual attraction. So I thought that was really interesting. And again, for both of you, it's different. For both of you, you have different approaches. Person on the left, you might be more like introverted with your sexuality a little bit more so. Person on the right is more open with it, more like experimental. Person on the left is a little bit more conservative in that area. But again, for both of you, you have that like intellectual focus actually. So again, I really like it. Um, I think it would work in terms of, again, it's very different. You have that kind of spice, that edginess where, that contrast where you'd be very interested in each other's differences, but it's similar enough that you can still relate and have that shared connection. So, I think, it's honestly bugging me. I'm looking for something more challenging, but yeah, so far it looks really great. I don't mean it's bothering me. I'm happy that it looks like this is working out. It looks like a good connection, but I just don't want to sound like it's all positive because nothing's all positive. There's got to be some kind of challenge here. Let's see, what else? I just want to make sure I cover the basics first here. I think I have pretty much. I covered Sun, Moon, pretty much, sort of, descendant, Venus, Mars. Okay, so yeah, honestly, just kind of taking a step back and looking at it all, I think this is a really great combination. Um, and it gets more interesting. So in just a moment, I'm going to show, well, let's just show it now since I'm talking about it. So I've showed both of your charts side by side. This is the chart. Nope, I'm sorry, that's not the chart. This is the chart combining both of your charts together. Now, I don't necessarily expect you to understand this. I just want to be transparent and show what I'm looking at to deliver this information. Um, but this is a little bit more complex, and there's a lot of information here. But it's handy when looking at how your planets kind of aspect one another. So we've got person on the left is now the person on the inside on the inner wheel, shown in blue, and then person on the right is now shown on the outside, shown in this kind of like orangey color. Um, so the main thing that I looked, I looked at this of course before starting the reading, and the main thing I thought was very fascinating is that both of your nodes connect with each other's Mars and or Venus. So person on the left, now on the inside, you have Venus and Mars. Venus is at the end of Leo, Mars is at the beginning of Virgo. they're both right next to person on the right's south node. So to translate that, um, we talked about person on the right south node in Virgo, how, they have that Virgo type of past, that analytical past, or, they're good at all that type of Virgo stuff, mundane stuff, the chores, whatever. Um, so we talked about that. There's that going on. It's a very familiar energy to the person on the right. It's something they get very well. I excuse for the person on the right. I think that's what I said. Person on the left, you have Venus and Mars in this area, especially Mars, which is actually in Virgo. Venus is in Leo, so it's a different sign, but it's at the very end. It's very close. So, person on the left, your Venus and Mars, this is your attraction. This is a lot of, what you find, sexy or attractive in a person, or, in a relationship. So for you, like for both of you, this is going to work very, very well. Person on the left is attracted to the person on the right's, like, kind of, what they're good at, their foundation, where they come from. So I guess a kind of simpler way of saying this would be a strong indicator that person on the left is very attracted to person on the right, which I know you already know that, but yeah, this works very well because again, the South Node it's kind of a deep part of our personalities, being our soul lineage and stuff. So the more you would kind of open up to one another, the more um, person on the left would indulge in that kind of attraction with the person on the right. So that works really well. Okay, not only that, but this works kind of the flip in the other direction as well because person on the left has North Node in Gemini, and it's very close to person on the right's Mars. So let's see, this is actually a little bit more tricky. So, okay, so this shows that person on the left would learn from the masculine side of person on the right's personality. So, person on the right, the part of you that's ambitious, the way your drive is. For you, you have Mars and Gemini. So, you're very quick witted. Um, yeah, let's talk about person on the right. It's Gemini first to kind of explain. This will help to explain. So person on the right, you're very quick-witted. Like if someone comes at you with like an insult or a snarky remark, you'll come up with something instantaneously. You'll come up with something clever. You're a great debater. You're great at like thinking on the fly. You're really good at that. And when it comes to your ambitions and your drives, there's a lot of variety there. There's a lot of versatility, and especially we already looked at your other placements, so I already know that I think you're a very ambitious person. You're a very goal-oriented person. And specifically when we're talking about Mars and Gemini, this means that, you have many fingers and many pies, as they say. I would think that you'd have many projects going on. Like what you're attracted to, not only ambitiously, but also like more sexually, would be variety. So, like some people would say, oh, that's a slut placement. I always say these Gemini placements, it's not necessarily a slut placement. It just means you need variety. So, person on the right, you could settle down with one person just fine. And you would just need a lot of versatility and variety in that person to kind of keep your interest. And let's go back to these two charts side by side. You would find that person on the left has Libra Sun, Virgo Mercury, um, Cancer Moon. There is a lot of variety there. There's a lot of depth and nuance. So this works very well. Person on the right, there's a lot of mutual attraction, I guess is what I'm finding. Person on the right is attracted to the level of nuance and complexity in the person on the left. But all that is to kind of actually get a different concept I was trying to explain, which is, okay, person on the left has, let's go back to this chart here. What I'm looking at is right here, this North Node Mars conjunction. Person on the left has North Node conjunct person on the right's Mars. Okay, so person on the left, you would learn and evolve by being around and experiencing person on the right's all that side of them that I just talked about. So this kind of ambitious side, the way they handle many different projects, the way they're attracted to variety, all of that, the whole way they kind of approach things and initiate and their ambitions would be very valuable in terms of soul growth for person on the left is kind of what I'm trying to say. So it would help your growth. It would further your evolution and your soul growth is kind of what I'm trying to say. So hopefully I've articulated that well enough. Yeah, so in short, by looking at this, I've realized there's some really, really deep mutual attraction between both of you. So of course that's important with a relationship. I talk about, descendant is the most important thing because that's what you need in a relationship. But, Venus and Mars are important too. There's got to be some spice and some attraction, of course, keep things interesting and fun. So looking at this chart has really showed me that there is deep mutual attraction. And not only that, but soul growth as well through that attraction. That attraction between you would actually help each other's soul growth. Um, so yeah, so now I've realized that the more you um, like, especially you could see this in the initial stages of your relationship. Like the more you would find that you're attracted to one another and you're exploring like the sexuality and the romantic side and kind of indulging in each other, the more you would do that, the more it would almost feed upon itself, and it would also trigger both of your kind of soul growth. So that's very powerful, very cool. I'm really, I'm enjoying this. It looks really nice, to be totally honest. Um, let's see. The only kind of challenge I could see, well, actually, let me make before I can move on to challenges. Let me make sure I've kind of gleaned everything I can from this chart. Um, those are pretty much the main conjunctions that I see. I think this is most handy for seeing conjunctions. Um, well, there is one here. So, person on the left, your sun is actually pretty tightly conjunct person on the right's Lilith. This to me would indicate sexual attraction. So, like, um, person on the right would be very sexually attracted to person on the left. Um, and let's see what else here. Honestly, that's the main thing. Person on the left, you'd almost kind of like trigger person on the right to like kind of like really open them up sexually, if that makes sense. Like you'd really just like fit the bill and open them up in a new way. Because it would open up this more sexual side to their personality. So that's pretty cool as well. More attraction. um, and then other than that, I mean, there's let's see. Person on the left has their Chiron conjunct person on the right's Jupiter. I honestly wouldn't look too into that. I think if anything, that would show more mutual healing and teaching one another. Um, it also kind of shows that this is a karmic connection. So, person on the left, okay, so person on the left, you may have had some kind of trauma or wound in your past, which you had to deal with on your own. You didn't really get help with that. It may have to do with something with, I think I already kind of know from talking to you, but Chiron and Gemini, it shows that this trauma may have to do with like speaking or being understood or learning, your ability to connect with other people. You had some kind of challenge there that you had to go through on your own. Um, and this shows that with the person on the right, um, in that same area with teaching, speaking to other people, you would both kind of help each other learn in that area and teach each other things, open each other up to like new worlds in that area. Um, and it's a very karmic thing. It's almost like you're meant to kind of help each other with, I don't know, social dynamics or being more open, more adaptable, learning. Um, I don't know, communicating maybe. You'd both teach each other in that area. So that's pretty cool. Um, and I think that's the main thing. I mostly look at this chart for conjunctions and, you know, so yeah. So what I get from this is there's a lot of mutual attraction, um, and a lot of mutual helping each other evolve, soul growth, which is really cool because I think that's important too. You have to both be growing kind of together, parallel to one another to continue the relationship long term. So I feel like this is a slam dunk for pretty much everything I look for so far. Um, you have a lot of mutual connection, attraction. Um, let's go back to this other chart here. Um, yeah, different, but you not only respect each other's differences but enjoy them most of the time. I know, relationships and life isn't always sunshine and rainbows, though. It's not, can't always be easy. So, the only challenges I really see would be, differences, of course, can be difficult. They are, like I said, what spice things up and what fuel the attraction, but they can be difficult as well. They require mutual compromise or understanding. Um, and so that's the only kind of place I could see maybe some challenges is, um, let's see, person on the left, you've got like Virgo Mercury, for instance. Um, wonder if your Mercury is, yeah, it's pretty far from person on the right south node, but I guess you both have those Virgo placements, so you both understand each other. You're both kind of analytical, detail oriented, so that's easy. But both of your way of expressing yourself is very different. You probably know that already. Person on the left, you're more kind of calculated, more kind of think before you act, maybe with speaking, and you're more monotone. Like Virgo, Mercury is known to be more like monotone or not show a lot of like crazy ups and downs in the voice or the tone. It's more kind of objective and um, more just concerned about the information that it's portraying. Person on the right, you have your Mercury in Aries, which is a lot different. You'd be more kind of passionate. You'd speak um, with more like conviction or more like spirit. And I'm very careful in the way I paint this because I don't, neither is superior to the other. They're both equally valid. They're just very different, is all I'm saying. Um, so that could result in maybe some misunderstandings at times, maybe. I'm really digging for for challenges here. So this is, don't take this as a big thing, but I could see that as maybe being, the way you express yourself, the way you kind of think, is very different at times. So that could result in misunderstandings. But like I said, you do have a deep connection. You have a lot of shared, you have a lot in common as well. So it's not the end of the world. But that could be one area of challenge. Um, what else? And then you do technically, wow, I just noticed person on the left, your sun is at 7 degrees Libra, person on the right, your moon is at 7 degrees Aries. So that means they are exactly opposite. Typically, again, some pop astrologers would say, oh, that's an opposition. That means you're different. So it doesn't work. But I would disagree. Opposites do attract. They, it can make things sexy because we're interested in someone different than ourselves. That's very interesting. Also, especially though, with this Libra Aries axis, person on the left, you have your sun at 7 degrees Libra. Person on the right has moon exactly opposite at 7 degrees Aries. So together, it makes like a full moon. Person on the left sun opposes person on the right's moon. That's a full moon aspect. So the way this translates is person on the left shines a light on the kind of deeper personality of the person on the right. So really, I think you would both be able to kind of open each other up very easily and understand each other and get to know each other very quickly. You have some placements that would kind of trigger that. So I would suspect that this relationship probably developed very quickly, um, especially because of these fire placements as well. Both with Fire Venus, for instance, both of you have a similar approach to relationships in the sense that you know how you feel, you know what you want. You're very direct. You don't because you're brave in that regard. If you feel something for someone, you want to tell them. You want to say, "Hey, this is where I'm at. This is me. I like you. Let's do this." You both have this very direct, very quick approach. So things would get moving pretty quick, I feel like. But again, especially because of these other placements as well, like Sun opposing Moon, that shows this really deep, kind of more emotional connection that would develop very quickly as well. And what I was also saying is Libra Aries oppositions are very beautiful because, I touched on this at the beginning, but Aries is the leader. It has all the ideas. It wants to make the first move. It wants to lead someone, maybe make the first move with someone. Aries likes the chase too. So person on the right, you like the chase. You would want to chase the person on the left, which is kind of fun. And then person on the left would be very receptive to that. Person on the left is more easygoing, go with the flow. So they would very much appreciate someone kind of maybe going after them a little bit. And then that would really spark up that Leo Venus. So that would get that fire side going. So um, yeah, I feel like I could see how this whole thing would kind of play out, and it looks pretty cool. Um, but anyway, yeah, the Aries, Libra on the left, Aries on the right. Um, yeah, Aries person leads. I don't want to say Libra person follows because they're both strong-willed placements. Um, but yeah, Aries would be kind of more the leader, I guess you could say. Um, yeah, I don't see a lot of other challenges. Um, let's see. Person on the left, you've got your moon at 22 degrees Cancer, so that makes a square. It's a pretty loose square though. But it does square person on the right's Mercury and ascendant. I don't feel like that would be an issue though. I really don't. I feel like you'd still have the reason why I brought that up is because squares can represent um, this kind of like gritty energy, uh, like not really meshing well. But like I talked about earlier, to me, square aspects between two people can actually work because my take on it is more that you're in different places and you can see where each other's at. That's really what it is. So, especially because person on the left you have your moon conjunct person on the right's IC. That's that little black triangle at the base of the right chart, and that is kind of the foundation, the upbringing, the home life. So that works really well. That's conjunct person on the left's moon. Moon also has to do with the home life and the foundation in a lot of ways. So yeah, in short, looks like a beautiful connection. um, this was a little rambly. I'm sorry, but it looks really great. Usually I try to make these kind of about what's the good, what's the bad, how do we improve the bad, how do we work on the challenges. I almost feel like I failed you because I haven't been able to find a lot to like work on or a lot of challenges. Only thing I could find is like maybe the miscommunications, especially when both of you are really deep in like analysis or like mental ability, like you're deep like thinking about a lot of things and a lot of details and a lot of detail work and a lot of that kind of like mental energy. When both of you are immersed in that mental energy, you may not understand each other as well. There may be miscommunications. Again, nothing to worry about, not a big deal, but that is just something I could come up with. And the only other thing is, going back to your Mars placements, they do square one another. So again, it would be that thing where it's you're in different places, you have different approaches sexually, but you understand each other. And again, you have that shared intellectual sexuality. Um, but maybe that could be an area of challenge where person on the left is like, no, let's kind of stick with more conventional stuff. Let's not rock the boat. And person on the right's like, no, let's try stuff. Let's get experimental. I feel like you have enough placements, showing mutual attraction and deep connection, mutual understanding, that any differences there, I feel like would not be challenging for you. Like you could, especially because it's both of your sexuality is more mentally oriented. It means that you're both adaptable in those areas. So even though you may be coming from different places, you'd both be able and willing to adapt and compromise and find something that works for both of you. For the most part, I would say. I think that's pretty much what I have to say. I don't want to make this too rambly. Um, it looks really beautiful. I think I want to end this on the descendant because, like I said, I didn't understand that initially, but they do check out very well. Yeah, so in short, mutual understanding. You're both very different people, but you understand each other. You respect each other, and in a way, you kind of balance each other. Um, and you're both very attracted to one another, but that attraction isn't, it is fun, which is very important, but it's not just fun. It's actually key for, triggering both of your soul growth and expansion. So I feel like this is good. I feel like that attraction would last a long time. I feel like you'd be mutually beneficial to one another. I really do. And like I said, you may disagree at times because there is that contrast between you, but I really don't think it's anything you couldn't work out. I feel like you'd both naturally be able to do so. So I hope that was insightful or interesting. And yeah, thank you for this opportunity. I haven't done one of these in a while, so it was very interesting. Okay. And if anyone's listening to this, if I do post this publicly, I'm not sure yet, but if you do want a reading, just email me at manic.mercurian@gmail.com. And I will also link a video in the description that will talk about more information on readings if you're interested in that. But thanks for watching, and thank you for this request. It was very interesting. And I'll talk to you later.